The same mouths that once laughed at your downfall are now biting their tongues so hard they taste blood. Chosen one, let that sink in. Because right now, behind closed doors, the universe has flipped the entire board. Something massive just happened in your favor, and your enemies, the very ones who wished for your silence, are crying in rooms where no one can hear them. Now, imagine this for a moment, chosen one. A snake that once slithered proudly through the grass, hissing with arrogance, suddenly trapped in its own skin as it sheds, powerless and exposed. That's exactly what's happening to them. Their disguises are peeling away, and all that's left is the sound of their own misery echoing in empty walls. And here's a fact for you. Studies show that envy doesn't just live in the mind, it eats the body from the inside out. Scientists have found that bitterness can actually weaken the immune system, making a person sick, drained, and restless. So, believe me when I tell you, their tears aren't just wetting the pillow, they're poisoning their own spirit. They thought your fall would be permanent, but the universe had other plans. Now, they're forced to sit front row to a show they never wanted to watch, your rise. And thank you, chosen one, for being here with me right now. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe button to help spread this word to more souls, because it's the responsibility of all of us to carry this light forward. Thank you for being part of this mission. You are part of a force far bigger than yourself, and together, we make sure truth cannot be silenced. Now, let's come back to our topic. Something massive has shifted, and it's no small ripple. It's the kind of breakthrough that leaves a permanent mark. For so long, your enemies played a game of shadows, waiting for your missteps, hoping to feed on your failures. They wanted your story to end in silence, but instead, the universe wrote a new chapter in bold letters. They thought they could bury you, but here you are, not just surviving, but standing taller than they ever imagined. Think of it like this. When a seed is buried in the soil, it looks like it has been put to rest. But in reality, that burial is the beginning of its greatest transformation. The same people who threw dirt on your name are now watching you sprout, bloom, and break through the surface. And the irony, the very soil they used to bury you became the foundation of your growth. That's why they're crying, chosen one. Because the ending they wrote for you has turned into the prologue of your comeback. What makes this moment even sweeter is that their power was never real. It depended entirely on your silence, your doubt, and your surrender. But you didn't fold. You didn't crumble. And that resistance alone disrupted everything they thought they controlled. Psychologists say that when people lose control over someone they once dominated, it feels like losing oxygen. That's why they're gasping now. That's why their tears aren't healing them. They're drowning in them. Chosen one, listen closely. The reason they hide their tears is because they can't stand the truth, that the same person they once mocked, ignored, or underestimated is now the very force they can't escape. They'll never clap for you in public, but their silence is louder than any applause. Their eyes still search for you. Their whispers still circle around your name, and their bitterness still confirms one thing: you won. And not just quietly. You won in a way that rattled their entire foundation. So, chosen one, before we dive into the heart of this message, I want you to pause for a second and let this truth sink in. Something massive has already shifted in your favor, and that shift is the very reason your enemies are crying where no one can see them. If you've ever doubted whether the universe was moving on your behalf, this is your confirmation. Now, I want you to lock in with me fully, because the deeper we go, the more you're going to see the proof that their tears are the evidence of your breakthrough. Drop a comment below with the words, "I rise," if you can already feel this energy pulling you higher. And thank you, chosen one, for being here. Your presence keeps this message alive. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can spread this light to more souls who need it. Because we are not just telling stories, we are shaping legacies. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're breaking this down step by step. And if you are truly a chosen one, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. Let's get into it. Number 1, the curtain fell and their masks shattered. The cruelest punishment isn't losing power, it's being exposed for the fraud you always were. Chosen one, let that sink into your spirit. Because right now, the people who once paraded around in masks of perfection are choking on the silence of their own rooms. Behind closed doors, they are mourning something far greater than losing you. They are mourning the collapse of the fake image that shielded them for years. They didn't just lose you, chosen one, they lost their last mask. And when that mask fell, the stage they built crumbled under their trembling feet. For so long, they survived not on truth, but on performance. They painted themselves as the loyal one, the innocent one, the trustworthy one, while you stood in the background, silenced, doubting yourself, playing the villain in the script they wrote for you. And people believed it, didn't they? The applause was never for their reality. It was for their costume. But something massive just happened, something so undeniable that the entire show came to a sudden, brutal end. The universe tore their stage apart, and in the blinding spotlight, their true face was revealed. Now, imagine this for a moment, chosen one. Imagine an actor whose whole career depends on one mask, flawless, untouchable, adored. But then, mid-performance, the mask cracks and falls to the floor. The audience gasps, not because the play ended, but because they finally see the actor for who they are, ordinary, flawed, and full of lies. That's exactly what happened here. Your rise wasn't just about your victory, it was about their exposure, and exposure burns deeper than any sword. I know what might be running through your mind. You might be asking, why are they crying now, when they showed no sympathy for me before? The answer is brutal, but clear. They're not crying over you, they're crying over themselves. They're weeping because the story they told about you no longer works. They can't spin it. They can't twist it. They can't convince the world you're the problem. Your growth became the undeniable evidence that they lied. And once truth stands on its own legs, no amount of performance can compete with it. Here's a fact to seal this in your mind. Psychologists say that once a lie is exposed, the trust people had in that liar is permanently broken. It doesn't matter how many new stories they try to sell. The crack in the foundation is irreversible. That's why their tears sting so deeply. The admiration they once enjoyed is gone. The power they once had to control narratives has vanished. And the worst part? People aren't looking at you with suspicion anymore. They're looking at them. They've been unmasked in real time, and there's no way to glue that mask back on. And let's be honest, chosen one, this is the kind of loss that hurts worse than death to the ego. Because what they lost wasn't just a mask. It was their entire identity. They built their name, their image, their reputation, on the ashes of your silence. You staying down made them look like they were standing tall. But now that you've risen, the world sees their height for what it always was, a trick of the light. And when illusions collapse, they collapse hard. That's why the sound of their cries isn't healing. It's haunting. Think about it like this. A mirror that shatters can never be pieced back together the same way. Every shard reflects a distorted version of reality, no matter how carefully you try to glue it. That's their life now. Every relationship they try to mend, every story they try to tell, every smile they try to fake, it's all fractured because the truth already broke the glass. And the people around them know it. They may never say it out loud, but once a mask falls, no one ever looks at you the same again. And here's the sting that keeps them up at night. Your rise wasn't just your personal win, it was the death of their illusion. Because while you stand taller, freer, and stronger, they're left staring at the ruins of the identity they thought would last forever. And deep down, they know this. There's no coming back from this kind of exposure. They can't reinvent themselves without people whispering, "But remember what we saw?" They can't play innocent anymore, because innocence can't be reclaimed once it's proven false. So, yes, they're crying behind closed doors, but don't get it twisted. Those tears aren't about losing you. They're mourning the funeral of the character they built, the character that only survived because you stayed quiet. You were the mirror that reflected the truth they tried to hide, and when you stood up, the whole illusion collapsed. That's why their misery is so raw right now, because they know the world will never buy their act again, no matter how many times they try to replay it. And here's the brutal beauty in all of this, chosen one. You didn't even have to lift a finger to make it happen. Your only weapon was your growth, your resilience, your refusal to fold. That was enough to collapse the empire of lies they thought would last forever. Their downfall wasn't created by vengeance. It was created by truth. and nothing terrifies a liar more than truth. So, when you hear the silence around them, understand it isn't peace, it's grief. Grief for a mask that fell, for an illusion that shattered, for an identity that can never be rebuilt. And the irony is, they thought they'd destroyed you. But in the end, the only thing that got destroyed was the mask they worshipped. That, chosen one, is why their cries are louder than applause ever was. Number 2, the trap they set became the cage they live in. When you dig a grave for someone else, don't be surprised when the earth caves in beneath your own feet. Chosen one, that's the bitter truth your enemies are choking on right now. They thought they were playing the role of masterminds, clever schemers weaving plans that would crush you and elevate them. Every whisper, every rumor, every secret sabotage was designed to strip you of your power, to humiliate you, to leave you questioning your worth. But what they never saw coming was that the very snares they built for you would turn into iron bars around their own necks. Their plans didn't just backfire, they became their prison. Think about it like this. Imagine a spider spinning a massive web, confident that it will trap its prey. But over time, the strands tighten and wrap around the spider itself until the hunter becomes the prisoner. That's the reality of your enemies. They thought their lies were weapons, but those lies demanded more lies, and the web grew so thick it swallowed them whole. Now they are the ones gasping, stuck in the same traps they designed for you. And maybe you wonder, why does it hurt them so badly now, when they seemed so bold before? The answer is simple. Lies are heavy. Deception is exhausting. Every rumor they spread, every plot they laid, required them to keep adding more weight on their shoulders. And here's the fact. Psychologists say maintaining lies takes up enormous mental energy. Eventually, the brain buckles under the strain. That's why they're crying in silence now. The burden of their falsehoods has become unbearable. They're trapped inside the very stories they invented. A liar builds their house with borrowed bricks, but one storm will reveal the rot beneath. Chosen one, that storm was your rise. You didn't even have to lift a sword against them. Your success alone became the spotlight that exposed every weak seam in their foundation. They buried you under rumors, but now they're the ones waking up at night, terrified of exposure. They sabotaged your opportunities, yet now it's their own doors slamming shut, one after another, as people finally see the truth. They set traps thinking you'd stumble, but their own feet keep finding the snare, over and over, like a cruel echo of the choices they made. Now imagine this for a moment. Picture a locksmith who carefully designs a cage, proud of their craft, certain they've created an escape-proof structure. But in their arrogance, they forget one thing. They're standing inside it while building. When the final lock clicks, they realize too late that they've locked themselves in. That's your enemy's chosen one. They believed they were designing your downfall, but with every move, they were welding their own prison bars shut. And here's another quote that stings like salt on their wounds. The fire you light for someone else will always leave ashes in your own lungs. They poured all their energy into burning bridges beneath your feet, but now they're the ones coughing in the smoke. Their lives feel smaller, suffocating, restricted. Why? Because the universe doesn't let destructive energy move freely without consequence. That energy circles back, and when it does, it binds the sender tighter than any victim they aimed at. You may wonder, do they realize what's happening? Or are they still blind to their own collapse? Oh, chosen one, they know. That's why the tears fall hardest behind closed doors. They know they've lost the game. They know they can't undo what's been set in motion. They can't rewrite the past. They can't erase the whispers they created. They can't reverse the poison they spread. Every brick of their prison was laid by their own hands, and now those same bricks form walls that close in tighter every day. A snake that coils too tightly around its prey often ends up strangling itself. That's exactly what happened here. They wrapped their envy, their bitterness, their jealousy around you so tightly, thinking they could suffocate your spirit. But instead, they ended up cutting off their own air supply. That's why their private breakdowns are so raw. They're suffocating not because of what you did to them, but because of what they did to themselves. Now imagine this, chosen one. Imagine a chess player so obsessed with trapping their opponent's king that they ignore their own position. They move piece after piece, smug with anticipation, until suddenly they realize it's their own king cornered, their own game lost. That's the irony your enemies can't escape. They believed they were outsmarting you, but in reality, they checkmated themselves. And here's the kicker. What makes this punishment so brutal isn't just the collapse of their schemes, but the permanence of it. Once a prison is built, it doesn't vanish. They can't go back in time and undo the choices. They can't unplot the sabotage. They can't unspread the rumors. They can't erase the envy that drove them. They are stuck with themselves. And that, chosen one, is the cruelest sentence of all. Because think about it. What's worse than losing? It's being chained to the evidence of your own failure, day after day. Their tears are proof of that weight. Every time they see you succeed, the chains tighten. Every time you rise, another door locks. Every victory you achieve is a reminder that their plot has become their prison. That's why their lives feel smaller now. That's why their laughter sounds hollow. That's why their rooms echo with silence instead of triumph. Karma doesn't need a calendar. It arrives when the weight of your actions crushes you from within. And that's exactly what's happening. This isn't just poetic justice. It's universal law. A plan rooted in destruction will always collapse on the one who planted it. And now, their suffering is the echo of their own intentions. So yes, they're crying, chosen one, but remember, those tears aren't about regret for hurting you. They're about regret for trapping themselves. They thought victory would taste sweet, but it's turned bitter in their mouths. They thought watching you struggle would bring joy, but instead, it left them shackled to their own failures. The beauty of this moment is that you don't need to seek revenge, because the revenge already happened. Their punishment is living in the cage they built, carrying the chains of their own decisions, forever haunted by the traps they set. You're free, chosen one. You walked away. And every step you take outside those prison walls makes their confinement feel colder, heavier, more inescapable. Number 3. They prepared your grave, but ended up burying themselves. The sweetest revenge is when those who predicted your death are forced to attend the burial of their own pride. Chosen one, that is the bitter truth echoing through the silent rooms of your enemies right now. They once walked around with smug certainty, convinced your collapse was only a matter of time. They whispered your obituary before you had even stumbled, celebrating your so-called ending like it was already written in stone. But what they never saw coming was that their celebration would twist into mourning, mourning not for you, but for themselves. Imagine this for a moment. A crowd gathers waiting for a funeral procession they believe belongs to you. They wear black, they whisper condolences, they smirk behind fake tears. But when the coffin opens, it isn't you lying inside. It's their pride, their arrogance, their reputation. That's the moment they're living in right now. They thought your storms would drown you, but instead, every storm became your training ground. Every battle you endured forged you into steel, brick by brick, until you rose unshakable. You didn't just survive, you transformed. And here's the question you might ask. Why does it sting them so badly now? Because their humiliation isn't silent, it's public. They boasted too loudly about your ending, betting their credibility on your failure. Now, every breath you take, every success you walk into, exposes them as liars. The very people who swore you'd never rise have to live with the fact that your existence is their contradiction, and that miscalculation is burying them alive. Psychologists say that public humiliation is one of the deepest forms of psychological pain, because it attacks both identity and social standing. That's what they're feeling. Their reputations have rotted because they wrote your eulogy too soon. Their influence is dead. Their false superiority is dead. The illusion they painted of you being weak, broken, or finished, it's all dead. And the funeral they thought they were attending in your honor has turned into the burial of everything they once clung to. Publicly, they put on the mask of indifference, but behind closed doors, they're haunted. They replay every scheme, every rumor, every confident prediction of your end, only to realize it all backfired in their faces. The truth is unbearable. All the energy they poured into trying to destroy you only destroyed them. They thought they were preparing flowers for your grave, but life placed those flowers back in their hands as a wreath for their own downfall. And that, chosen one, is a loss they will never stop grieving. Number 4. Your name turned into gold. they'll never hold. They dragged your name through dirt, but forgot dirt is where diamonds are formed. Chosen one, that's the gut punch truth slicing through your enemies right now. They spent years trying to cheapen your identity, believing that if they mocked you enough, smeared you enough, or convinced enough people to doubt you, then your name would lose all value. They thought a tarnished reputation would lock doors forever. But what they never calculated was that a name forged in truth, resilience, and survival doesn't fade, it appreciates. And now, your name is untouchable currency, while theirs has been reduced to dust. Imagine this for a moment. 2 coins are dropped into circulation. One is counterfeit, shiny, polished, but fake. The other is authentic, worn, scarred, yet real. Over time, the fake coin loses its shine and is tossed aside, while the authentic one only grows more valuable because people trust its weight. That's exactly what happened. Your enemies built their reputations on counterfeits, on lies, manipulation, and appearances. But your name, tested by storms and fire, emerged as the real thing, and authenticity can't be faked. Here's the sting that eats at them. Every time your name is spoken in certain circles, it carries weight. It's spoken with respect, curiosity, even admiration. People who once doubted now have no choice but to acknowledge you. Your name itself has become a key that opens doors, not because of who co-signs you, but because your story stamped undeniable value on it. Meanwhile, their names are like rusted locks, jammed shut, because no one trusts them anymore. You might ask, but why can't they just ride on my name? Can't they attach themselves to me? No, chosen one, and that's what breaks them. Your name is currency they can't counterfeit, no matter how desperately they try. Imitations always get exposed as cheap. Doors that swing open at your name will slam shut at theirs. They can't borrow your light, they can't steal your victories, and they can't force themselves into the rooms that recognize you. That truth is unbearable for them, and it's why they cry where no one can see. Reputation is a bank account. Deposits come from truth, withdrawals from lies. You kept depositing resilience, integrity, and survival. They kept overdrawing with deception. Now, your balance is overflowing while their account is empty. The universe rewarded your authenticity, and no matter how hard they pound on the gates, those doors remain locked to them. That's why your name, chosen one, is the master key, and theirs is just a code that no longer works. Number 5, they're starving without the power you once fed them. Parasites never realize they're nothing without the host until the host walks away. Chosen one, that's the hammer crashing down on your enemies in the silence of their private tears. They mocked you, they belittled you, they drained you, and yet behind all the arrogance was one truth they never dared to say out loud. You were the battery that kept their world alive. Your energy, your resilience, your vision, your kindness was the current running through their empty lives. Even as they pretended to despise you, they were secretly feeding off you. Every insult they hurled was just camouflage to hide the unbearable fact that they needed you far more than you ever needed them. Now, imagine this for a moment. Picture a lamp that shines brightly in the corner of a dark room. For years, they plugged into that lamp, basking in the glow, acting like they created the light themselves. But one day, you pulled the cord. The bulb didn't burn out, it just stopped sharing its light with them, and instantly, their room returned to darkness. That's where they are now, stumbling, suffocating, surrounded by shadows, because the glow they stole no longer shines on them. You might ask, but couldn't they just replace me with someone else? That's the irony. They've tried. They chased new faces, clung to distractions, even hunted for new victims to drain. But nothing works, because what you carried wasn't something that could be imitated or replaced. It was substance. It was spirit. And without it, their world feels dry, heavy, and painfully hollow. That emptiness gnaws at them like hunger they can't satisfy, which is why their tears taste bitter in the dark. They once called you weak, but it was your strength they siphoned to survive. That's the cruel joke of it all. They branded you ordinary, but your ordinary presence was the very glue holding their lives together. They treated you as disposable, but without you, they're the ones discarded, cast aside by the very world they thought they controlled. And here's the fact that crushes them. Psychologists say when someone loses their primary emotional supply, the withdrawal symptoms mimic physical addiction, restlessness, emptiness, even depression. That's what they're living now. Their mask of independence is cracking. They'll never admit it in public, but in silence, they know the truth. Their so-called power was never theirs. It was borrowed. And once a source cuts off access, you can't demand it back. You can't draw water from a sealed well. You can't plug into a battery that refuses to charge you. That realization is their private torment. Every tear they shed is not about missing you. It's about missing the free access to the force that sustained them. The well they drank from has run dry, and the desert around them is of their own making. They thought you'd always be there, endlessly refilling them. Instead, your departure has become the undeniable lesson. Their power was never their own. It was yours. And now, stripped of access, they're starving, and that starvation will never end. Number 6. The spotlight faded and left them in the dark. Thieves can steal applause, but they can't steal talent, and without talent, the claps always die out. Chosen one, that's the brutal reality hammering your enemies right now. For years, they strutted around on stages they didn't build, soaking in praise that wasn't meant for them. They hijacked your brilliance, your resilience, your effort, and wore it like their own costume. And yes, for a time, the crowd believed it. The lights shone, the claps thundered, and their egos swelled. But here's the truth they never saw coming. Stolen light doesn't last. It flickers, it fades, and when it dies out, it exposes the thief for who they always were. Now imagine this. Picture someone standing in front of a mirror with the sun blazing behind them. The glow looks magnificent, dazzling even, but the glow isn't theirs. The moment the sun moves, they're left in shadow, ordinary, unremarkable. That's what your enemies are living now. The applause they enjoyed was never born from them. It was an echo of your light bouncing off their glass. And now that you've walked away, the echo has gone silent. You might be asking, but why does it sting so badly now? Couldn't they just keep pretending? Here's the fact. People eventually notice when the music no longer matches the performance. Psychologists even say audiences can sense authenticity instinctively. It resonates deeper than surface charm. That's why their claps sound emptier these days. The rooms they once thrived in feel quieter, because the substance, the rhythm, the soul, was you. Without you, it's like listening to a song with no beat. Noise, but no life. Applause is loudest when it belongs to the right performer. Stolen claps echo hollow. They're crying in silence because they can't recreate what you gave them. They can mimic your spirit, your ideas, your strength, but imitation cracks fast, and the cracks are showing. The humiliation cuts deep, not just because the applause is gone, but because people are beginning to see the truth. They were never the ones who deserved it. Their shine was counterfeit, their recognition borrowed. And here's the part that haunts them most. Once the mask of greatness falls, there's no putting it back on. Everyone can see that, without you, they're just ordinary. That's why their private tears sting. They know the spotlight isn't coming back. The echo has vanished, and what remains is silence. And silence is louder than any applause they ever stole. Number 7. Their triumph turned to poison in their mouths. What looks like victory today can rot into regret tomorrow, and that's the taste burning their tongues right now. Chosen one, the victory they once flaunted over you has soured so badly it reeks. In the beginning, it was sweet to them. They drank it down like fine wine, bragging, laughing, celebrating in secret, convinced they had finally broken you. For a fleeting moment, they felt untouchable, powerful, victorious. But time has a ruthless way of stripping illusions. What once tasted like triumph has now aged into something foul, bitter, and undrinkable. Imagine this for a moment. Picture someone lifting a glass in triumph, toasting to their own cruelty, savoring what they believe is victory. But as the years pass, the same glass begins to smell rancid. They take a sip, and instead of sweetness, all they taste is decay. That's the aftertaste haunting your enemies right now. Their so-called victory was never rooted in greatness. It was rooted in cruelty. They didn't rise because of strength. They only rejoiced because they thought you had fallen. and any celebration built on another's suffering always turns to poison. You may wonder, why does it sting them so badly now if they once enjoyed it? Because time exposes truth, chosen one. Their triumph was never real. It was nothing more than evidence of their darkness. What they claimed as proof of superiority now screams as proof of their emptiness. They thought they proved themselves better than you, but what they truly proved was how far they would sink just to see you hurt. That realization doesn't fade with time, it festers. Victories built on cruelty always decay, leaving behind only the stench of shame. Every time your name rises, strong and unshaken, their old memories sour even further. Their private tears flow because they can't escape the shame of having cheered at your lowest point. What once made them proud now humiliates them. What once gave them a rush of joy now haunts them in silence. And here's the cruelest part for them. They can't undo it. They can't erase the way they laughed when you hurt. They can't rewrite the moment they paraded their win while you bled. The world may not know the full depth of their cruelty, but they know, and their conscience is louder than any applause they once stole. Their so-called victory didn't define their greatness. It exposed their downfall. And that bitter aftertaste will follow them for the rest of their lives. A constant reminder that what they thought was wine turned out to be venom. That's why they cry behind closed doors. Their celebration aged into shame, and shame is a poison that never leaves the tongue. Number 8. You became the living proof they can't destroy. The loudest revenge isn't noise, it's survival. Chosen one, that's the unbearable truth pressing down on your enemies right now. They spent years crafting stories about you, dripping lies into ears, twisting facts into weapons, and convincing anyone who would listen that you were finished. They thought repetition would make the lie permanent, that if they controlled the narrative long enough, the world would forget who you truly are. But they never considered the one thing they couldn't erase. You're still here. Your very existence is the evidence their lies cannot withstand. Every step you take, every breath you draw, every victory you live out contradicts the script they wrote for you. Imagine this for a moment. A prosecutor builds an entire case on false evidence, speaking confidently, almost arrogantly, as if conviction is guaranteed. But then the accused walks into the courtroom, alive, unbroken, and thriving. The whole case collapses without a word being spoken. That's what your life has become, chosen one. Undeniable evidence standing tall in the face of their accusations. You don't need to argue. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't even need to respond. Your survival is the testimony. Your strength is the cross-examination. Your progress is the verdict. And their lies? Exposed, shredded, and void. Truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand. And that is why they cry behind closed doors. Because this kind of defeat can't be explained away. It's permanent. They can scramble for excuses, spin new rumors, even try to rewrite history. But none of it matters. Every time you rise, their story dies a little more. Every move you make forward crushes the weight of their narrative. They thought they buried you, but your growth split the ground open, proving them liars in front of everyone. You might wonder, but do people really see it? Do they notice? The answer is yes. People notice when words and reality don't match. Even those who once doubted you are now seeing the gap, the undeniable distance between what was said about you and who you actually are. And once people see that contradiction, they start asking questions. Those questions always circle back, chosen one. And when they do, the spotlight of suspicion falls exactly where it belongs, on your enemies. Lies crumble under the weight of a life that refuses to fold. That's why their tears are different now. It's not just regret, it's despair. They realize they can't undo what's already been proven. No punishment you could hand them compares to the torment of knowing you exist as breathing proof of their deception. Your very presence is the evidence they can never erase, and that truth will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Number 9, they don't long for you. They crave the chains they lost. Controllers don't cry for love. They cry for the leash that slipped from their hands. Chosen one, that's the raw truth grinding your enemies to dust in silence. Their tears don't flow from missing you as a human being, as a soul, or as a presence. No, their grief is rooted in something far darker, the loss of control. You were once the puppet they thought they could manipulate at will, and that illusion of power was their drug. It gave them a high, a twisted thrill, the satisfaction of believing they owned your story. Now that the cord is cut, they're in withdrawal, and it's tearing them apart. Imagine this for a moment. A puppeteer jerks the strings, smirking as the puppet dances on command. The crowd applauds, convinced the performer has skill. But what happens when the strings snap? The puppet doesn't fall. It walks off the stage on its own 2 feet. And the puppeteer? Exposed, trembling, irrelevant. That's the exact nightmare they're living, chosen one. They fed on your reactions, your defensiveness, your silence, your explanations. Each one was their oxygen. Every time you bent to prove yourself, they grew stronger. But now, you give them nothing. No explanations, no justifications, no reactions. You move forward untouched, and in their world, that silence is suffocation. To those addicted to control, irrelevance is worse than death. And that's why they cry in secret. You don't ask for their approval anymore. You don't bend to their criticism. You don't pause to defend your name. You live, you rise, you thrive, and all of it happens without their permission. To them, that's not freedom for you. It's a funeral for them. The leash they once clung to is gone, and with it, their sense of importance. You may wonder, but wasn't there at least some care, some connection? No, chosen one. They mistook domination for closeness, manipulation for love, control for loyalty. But when the control vanished, nothing remained. The bond they thought existed was never real. It was just a shell built on power games. That realization stings sharper than any blade. Their tears are the confession they'll never speak aloud. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you they could bend, silence, and shrink. Without you to control, they are ordinary, powerless, exposed. Their illusion of dominance shattered, and with it, their entire sense of importance collapsed. And that emptiness is the prison they now mourn in silence. Number 10. Their false throne. Crumbled the moment you refused to bow. The day you refused to break was the day their kingdom of lies collapsed. Chosen one, that is the core of their agony. For years, your pain was their pedestal. Your silence was their microphone. Your brokenness was the stage they performed on to look bigger, stronger, and more successful than they ever truly were. Their entire sense of superiority was borrowed from your suffering. They needed you beneath them to feel above anyone. But when you refused to stay broken, when you stood tall through storms designed to bury you, their comfort zone shattered like glass underfoot. Imagine this for a moment. Picture a house built on stilts, balanced not on solid rock, but on someone else's back. As long as that person stays down, the house stands tall. But the moment the person rises, the house topples violently into the dust. That's what happened the moment you stood. Their entire identity was built on your submission. And when you withdrew that role, the foundation crumbled beneath them. You might ask, but why does my resilience hurt them more than any revenge ever could? Because resilience is a mirror they can't shatter. You didn't scream, you didn't beg, you didn't even retaliate. You simply refused to fold. And that quiet defiance is more devastating than any weapon. It revealed their fragility. It showed the world that their so-called strength was nothing but dependency on your weakness. Without you playing the broken one, their words now fall flat. Their performance has no audience. Their applause has gone silent. They never had power. They only had your silence. That's why their tears fall behind closed doors. People are beginning to see them for what they always were. Ordinary, insecure, powerless without someone else to stand on. Their false image is collapsing because it was never rooted in truth, only in your oppression. Now that you've risen, they have nothing left to lean on, nothing to compare themselves to, nothing to inflate their ego with. And here's the brutal irony. Your resilience wasn't even dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't about proving a point. It was steady, consistent, undeniable. And that steady strength is what destroyed them. Because every day you thrive is another day they're forced to grieve the stage you took away. Their comfort zone is gone forever, and with it, the false throne they once sat on. Now they stand in ruins, mourning not your downfall, but their own. Number 11. Every victory you claim is a public admission of their defeat. The brightest light exposes the deepest shadows. Chosen one, that's the truth gnawing at your enemies every time your name is spoken with respect, or your progress takes center stage. It's not just envy. It's a raw exposure of everything they failed to do, everything they refused to face. Your success is a mirror they can't avoid, no matter how hard they try. Every milestone you reach reflects back everything they could have achieved but didn't. Your resilience forces them to confront their own complacency, their missed opportunities, their lack of discipline. That's why they cry when no one's watching. Your growth is a sermon they never wanted but can't escape. Imagine this for a moment. You're walking forward while they're stuck, staring at the same spot they've been for years. Every step you take is a reminder of the journey they never took, of the chances they passed up. Your wins are not just wins. They are living, breathing reminders of their own failures. They've watched you rise, and in doing so, they've seen everything they could have been. And every time you thrive, you force them to face the truth. Their failures weren't about you, they were about them. You might wonder, why does their failure hurt them so much when I'm not even targeting them? The answer is simple. Your success exposes everything they've been running from. When you rise, you prove that effort pays off. When you shine, you prove that consistency wins. And when you break through, you prove that no sabotage can erase destiny. Those truths eat at them because they realize their wasted time wasn't spent on bettering themselves. It was spent trying to break you. Now, every achievement you claim is salt in the wound of their wasted years. It's one thing to envy success, but it's another to realize that success exposes your own failure. That's what drives them to tears. They don't just see your victories, they see their inability to match them. And that truth stings sharper than any insult. They invested years into tearing you down, and now they're forced to face the fact that their own laziness, their own inaction, is the true reason they're stuck. Here's the kicker. Other people are starting to notice too. Comparisons are being made, questions are being asked. Why are you thriving while they're still stuck in the same place? That public mirror magnifies the private torment, and they can't escape it. They might smile on the outside, but behind closed doors, they're breaking under the weight of the truth. Every success you claim is an indictment of everything they failed to do. You don't even have to speak. Your rise convicts them more clearly than any sermon ever could. Number 12. You became the unfinished lesson they'll never escape. The hardest truth to swallow is the one you can't erase, and that truth is you. Chosen one, that's the bitter realization drowning your enemies in silence. You've become the unresolved chapter they can never rewrite. You are the living, breathing reminder of everything they failed at, everything they worked tirelessly to destroy. They spent years pouring energy into schemes, manipulation, and lies, thinking they could bury you. But here you are, unbroken, present, and undeniable. Imagine this for a moment. You're a puzzle piece that refuses to fit in the story they've written. No matter how much they twist and turn it, no matter how hard they try to erase it, you remain unmovable. Every time they see you, hear your name, witness your progress, it stabs them with the truth they can't escape. They failed. Their cruelty, their bitterness, their attempts to crush you didn't win. You are their unfinished lesson, a lesson they never wanted to learn, but now must carry for the rest of their lives. What they tried to destroy is now the proof they can't shake. That's why they cry in the dark, alone with their thoughts. Because your existence is not just survival, it's an interruption. You interrupt the narrative they built around you. You interrupt their delusions of control, and you interrupt their comfort in believing they could remain untouchable. They thought your downfall would be their victory, but instead, they've been forced to watch you rise. And now, they are trapped in a loop, a never-ending class where the test is failure, and the lesson they can't pass is you. You might ask, why does this hurt them so much when I've moved on? It's because your growth makes them confront what they did. Every step you take, every piece of confidence you gain, every door that opens for you forces them to sit in the tension of what they did to you versus what you've become. You are the contradiction they can't resolve. Your existence shatters the illusion they spent so long trying to create. That's why their tears are not cleansing. They're a heavy, suffocating mixture of regret, shame, and fear. They know they failed. They know that they cannot erase you. They thought they were writing the end of your story, but instead, they wrote their own defeat. And that truth eats at them, gnawing away at everything they built on lies. They'll never be able to escape it. You're not just a person in their story anymore. You've become the eternal reminder that destiny won and they lost. Their tears aren't about missing you. They're about mourning the loss of control, the loss of the narrative they thought they owned. And the worst part is, there's no erasing it. You are their unfinished business. And that's a lesson they'll carry for the rest of their lives.